Cricket South Africa says it has stripped the under-19 skipper, David Teeger, of his captaincy for the World Cup campaign over fears that he could become a target for anti-war protesters. Now, Teeger has been in the spotlight for comments he made in support of Israeli soldiers at an awards ceremony which was back in October of 2023. The Democratic Alliance has described CSA's decision as political, saying he's been targeted. Well, let's speak now to journalist and university lecturer who lives in London, Daniel Gallan, who says that Cricket South Africa made the right decision to drop Teeger as captain. Let's understand why. Daniel, good morning to you. And let's deal with that first question, that you believe David Teeger was rightly stripped of his captaincy. Why do you believe so?
Good morning. Yes, I mean, it's a complicated matter, but I believe that it was the right decision, albeit done in a really poor manner by Cricket South Africa. But it was the right decision because I think a national team captain, especially a team captain in South Africa with our divisive past and divisive present, I think the national team captain should represent at least the idealized virtues of the country. Now, obviously, universal acceptance is incredibly difficult and will probably never be achieved. I mean, there are some people who believe that Siya shouldn't be captain of the Springboks, if you can believe that. But I think because Teeger's views were so incompatible with the views of the government and the views of the majority of South Africans, I do think that he shouldn't have been the face of the side. So while I criticize Cricket South Africa in my piece for the way that they handled the situation, I think they ultimately landed on the right decision.
Well, let's try and explore that a little bit, because in the body of your article, you raise something that stuck with me, and that is that this is as a consequence of misplaced words of a teenager. Explain that a little more.
Well, I mean, the fact that he's a teenager needs to, not be forgotten. When he said these words, he was 18 years old and still in high school. Now, I don't know about you, but I wasn't exactly clued up on geopolitics and complicated subjects like genocide and global history when I was 18. I certainly wasn't entrusted with being the focal point of such a global public relations nightmare. So I have a lot of sympathy for Teeger.
Yeah.
When he said these comments in support, when he dedicated an award that he won at a Jewish awards ceremony 15 days after the Hamas attacks, which were traumatizing for Jews around the world. I myself am Jewish, and though I'm a firm believer that Teeger was rightly stood down, the events of October 7th deeply impacted me and deeply impacted Jews around the world. And he personally knew one of the hostages, or knows one of the hostages rather. So 15 days after the events, it was still raw.
Yeah.
He was speaking out of script. It was impromptu comments. And he believed that his comments wouldn't have left the room where he accepted that award. It was published in on a website that then exacerbated and became national news. So, yeah, it was misplaced words of a teenager who perhaps wasn't fully cognizant of the impact of his words.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we mustn't forget how young this kid is.
Well, let's actually deal with that, because yes, he's a teenager, but he has massive responsibilities on his shoulders. He's a captain of an under-19 national side. And so dealing with that, or with that in mind, might we start talking about, should he have gotten coaching around what was going on? Because yes, he is Jewish, and this matter would most certainly have triggered the Jewish community in South Africa. Where does parenting play a role here? Where does Cricket South Africa sensitizing the entire team, knowing full well that they have people of Jewish nationality in their side?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's hindsight's wonderful. I'm sure Cricket South Africa wish that they had given him more stringent media training. Perhaps they should have known. But look, in 14 days after the event, when he did speak out, that isn't a huge amount of time. And Cricket South Africa, obviously, their primary focus is cricket matters. They couldn't have known that a future captain would have had a mic thrust in front of his face and speaking about this. So yes, hindsight's wonderful. So I don't want to be too critical. I mean, Cricket South Africa have a lot to answer for, but I don't want to be too critical of them not stamping out this fire before it sort of raged, as it were. On Teeger's Jewishness, because Cricket South Africa have been accused of anti-Semitism, and I do understand why some people would feel that. Jews in high-profile sporting positions in South African sports is quite rare. So the fact that a Jewish captain was stood down for his views about the only Jewish state in the world, yes, I can understand why there have been accusations of anti-Semitism. But Cricket South Africa knew he was Jewish when they made him captain. There are heartwarming stories of teammates walking to training with him and walking to matches with him because he wouldn't drive a car, wouldn't get in a car during the Holy Sabbath on Saturday mornings. Teammates have gone to shul with him. So his Jewishness was very much part of his identity and his sporting prowess, and that is why he was honored at these Jewish award ceremonies. His Jewishness and his athletic abilities were interwoven with each other. So I struggle to accept that Cricket South Africa suddenly became anti-Semitic. Cricket South Africa have either cowed to the threats of mob violence and are failing to protect their player, or, as some reports suggest, they may have fabricated this, or at least exaggerated the security concerns. So Cricket South Africa have a lot to answer for, but I truly believe anti-Semitism isn't one of them.
And I like that you bring up Cricket South Africa, and your constant refrain is that they have a lot to answer for. That's exactly what I want to deal with now, because you hold the view that CSA may have bowed to political pressure given South Africa's standpoint on this matter. But I don't want you to answer it, because an independent investigation was conducted and it cleared David Teeger of inciting violence or practicing hate speech. But I'd like you to listen for a moment to the main opposition in South Africa, the Democratic Alliance. Its leader spoke to me yesterday, and this is what he had to say about this particular matter. Let's take a listen.
I don't believe that this matter, it shows a pro-Israel bias at all. It is a principled matter that nobody should be punished or stripped of something because of their particular beliefs. And that is why we've taken such a strong line on this.
Do you agree with that sentiment from the main opposition in Parliament, that David Teeger was stripped of his captaincy because of his religious beliefs?
Okay, well, no, he certainly was not stripped of his captaincy because of religious beliefs. I mean, that is, as I said previously, that is unfounded, and I think that is pretty dangerous. I think what has happened here is that there's a dangerous and I think disingenuous conflation between Jewish identity and avowed Zionism and avowed support for a state that, in my opinion and the opinions of many others, are committing war crimes on a helpless people. So I think we need to distinguish between Jewishness and Zionism, and it sounds like Steenhuisen is not doing so. As far as him being stripped of his political beliefs, well, yes, but Cricket South Africa is a sporting organization, and captains at clubs all the way to national teams across the world have their leadership roles taken away from them. They may be in breach of team protocol. They may be routinely late for meetings. They might just be an unpleasant character whose leadership didn't quite chime with the rest of the team. So Cricket South Africa are well within their right to take the captaincy away from anyone they give it to. You know, they don't have to necessarily give their reasons. Now, because they decided to be what I think slightly dishonest with the cricket public, they've created a vacuum which has been filled with vitriolic and dangerous theories such as anti-Semitism. I also think this situation is slightly unpalatable for many fans because Cricket South Africa has shown that they believe that sports and politics do mix. Their heavy-handedness around the Black Lives Matter campaign and forcing players to take the knee, which, by the way, I was a vocal supporter of that. I believe that South African cricketers should have taken the knee, but because Cricket South Africa forced the players to do so, it sort of left a sour taste in the mouth of many fans. So I think the levels of hypocrisy from cricket fans saying, well, Cricket South Africa, you are happy for politics in this instance, but not in this instance. So it's the vague messaging has created this drama. I think if they were just honest and said, this is a national team, these under-19 boys, because they are boys, represent a country that has taken Israel to the ICJ for allegations of genocide. We are a supporter of Palestine, the Palestinian people, and we just feel that it is incompatible for our captain to have these views while our country is going through this process. So I think if they were honest about that and said, we still believe Teeger will play a key role, he's obviously an essential figure, behind the scenes he's going to have a leadership role, but we just don't want him to be the face of this operation, as it were.
Yeah.
Yes, they would have got criticism, but I would have found that at least more honest.
Well, let's actually deal with why it is important, therefore, for Cricket South Africa to come out clearly, because you are raising important history here. Not so long ago, there was that whole issue of Black Lives Matter, and indeed, Cricket South Africa stood up and they were in support of it. So in this instance, you are drawing that into this discussion, saying that they have allowed politics to meddle in sport, specifically in cricket. Is it wise of them, therefore, to pull out and not want to speak publicly? And I'm saying this because we invited the chair of the board from Cricket South Africa, Lawson Naidoo, and he said to our producer, we are no longer commenting on this matter. How important is it that they come out to clear the air?
Crucial. Cricket South Africa, I don't want to say they work for the South African public, but we as South African cricket fans are the stakeholders. They have a duty of care to be honest with us, and you know, if international sports is by its nature political. As soon as you ask a group of players to wear your country's flag, to go and sing your country's anthem, and to represent that country with all its history and politics and pain and trauma and hopes and aspirations, that is inherently political. They instantly become de facto ambassadors. And the organization that props them up has a duty of care to, A, equip them when things like this happen, but also to give an honest assessment of how exactly they want to steer the rocky road of politics, if I can put it that way. So, yeah, I think the silence is just frankly unacceptable. So, you know, if anyone at Cricket South Africa is watching this program now, I would urge them to just come out and be honest. We don't expect them to be perfect. We don't expect to always agree with them, but we do expect them to be honest. And I think their silence is, you know, can kind of speaks of a lack of accountability in South African leadership in general. So yeah, I feel really let down by Cricket South Africa's silence on this matter. Yeah,
let's conclude then, Daniel, very quickly. Going back to David Teeger and his cricket career, you sort of conclude the article by saying that this was a mistake because, and I quote now, he espoused a message that is incongruous with the values of the country he was tasked with leading. Is there a comeback for him? Specifically, do you think that he will ever be made captain again? He's young still.
Oh, I hope he comes back. I hope he goes and scores 100 in every single game of this World Cup and gets to lift the trophy. We all love the redemptive heroes arc. Wouldn't it be a fantastic story if David Teeger brushed this off and in 20 years' time when he's captaining the Proteas senior team, he can look back on this moment and say, I got it wrong, but there was a lot of learning. It was a painful experience, but I bounced back stronger. That will only happen, though, if the South African cricket public can accept his comeback, can accept that a young man made a mistake, and maybe look themselves in the mirror and think, well, you see a lot of so-called, self-identifying political experts on social media who weren't so clued up when they were 18. They're not so clued up now. So, I'm certainly not going to judge someone for their misguided beliefs when they were a teenager. Lord knows I didn't exactly have it altogether myself. So I would love to see him stay within South African cricket. I would love to see South African cricket look after him. And yeah, wouldn't it be fantastic if he goes on to captain the Proteas one day?
Daniel Gallan, let me thank you very much for your time. A journalist and a university lecturer based in the United Kingdom.